Hello students, today we are doing lesson 8.1, solving equations with multiple operations. Remember, you should be taking notes if this is your first time seeing this, if you haven't done this in class. If you've done it in class and you're just looking back at this, then you might want to follow along with your notes. Okay, I'm going to show you 4 different types of equations, and all of them are just a little bit different. So in the past, we did very simple equations, like maybe we did... oh, my pencil's not working. Hold on just a second. Got to connect my pencil to my iPad. Okay, let's see if that worked. Okay, so in the past, we did very simple one-step equations like 2x equals 6, and we would divide by 2 and get x equals 3. Or we might have done x plus 3 equals 5, and we would minus 3 from both sides and get x equals 2. Okay, so now we're going to kind of combine these two problems. So for our first example, we're going to do 2n plus 7 equals 25. Okay, so when you're doing order of operations, so if I have a problem like 2 plus 3 times 7, okay, we have the PEMDAS, right? Parentheses first. Oops, I forgot the E. Exponents, multiply and divide, and then add and subtract. Okay, well, when we're doing equations, we don't do it in this order. We do it kind of the backward order because we're trying to find x. So we're kind of working backwards. So on this problem where I have times here and add here, I'm not going to do them in the order that PEMDAS tells me to do it. I'm going to do it in the opposite order. So I'm going to take care of my add and subtract first. So where this says plus 7, I'm going to minus 7 on both sides. So that gives me 2n equals 25 minus 7 is 18. And then we're going to divide by 2 because that's all that's left to do. And I get n equals 9. So you have to go in that order. We can't go and divide by 2 first, because it will mess up the problem. And so instead of dividing by or multiplying first, we're going to add or subtract first. Okay, and then we can check this problem by putting this number, what n equals, up here into the n. So when I show a check, first I'm going to write the problem out. You don't have to do this. I'm just doing it so you see it on notes. So instead of n right here, I'm going to put 9 because that's what n equals, right? Okay, let me erase all of that. So I'm going to put 2 times 9 plus 7 equals 25. So when we check, we don't pay attention to the equals 25. We just pay attention to the left-hand side. So 2 times 9 is 18 plus 7. We just keep writing that equals 25. And then 18 plus 7 is 25. So now that shows me that they are both equal, and that's the way your checks should look for a two-step equation. This one is called a two-step equation because it took me 2 steps. I had to subtract 7, and then I had to divide by 2. Okay, that's like one of the most simple ones that we'll have. You may even see one that looks like x divided by 3 minus 2 equals 8. Okay, so this one had times and plus, and down here we're doing divide and subtract. This problem would be exactly like we did right there. This isn't actually an example. I'm just showing you really quick. I would take care of the minus 2 first by adding 2, so I'm doing the opposite. So I get x divided by 3 equals 10, and then I would times by 3 on both sides. So I would get x equals 30 because these two cancel each other out. Okay, so that was just a simple, really quick showing you that it's the same thing as that first example. Okay, example 2 is a little bit different though. So for example 2, I have 4 times x plus 3 equals 36. And there are actually 2 ways to solve this. You could use distributive property, which we talked about distributive property, I think in chapter 2, I'm not sure, but distributive property is where you distribute this 4 to everything inside the parentheses. And that's the way I prefer to teach it. So I'm just going to show you that way today. Okay, so we have 4 times x is 4x, and then 4 times 3 is 12. You have to multiply the 4 by both numbers inside, or the variable in the number inside the parentheses. Okay, and now after I do that, this equation looks just like the one we did in example 1. So I can solve it the same way. I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides, and I get 4x equals 24. Then I'm going to divide by 4 because I have 4 times x, so I'm going to divide by 4, and that gives me x equals 6. And that's my answer. Now I can check this one also, so I'm going to show you the check for each of these problems. I'm going to write down the problem first, but when you really do checks in my class, you do not have to write down the problem. I'm just writing it down so you can see what I'm doing. So instead of x right here, I'm going to put 6 in place of that x. So I'm going to have 4 times 6 plus 3 equals 36. Okay, so in order of operations, now I don't have an x in this problem, so I'm going to solve it with order of operations. So I have 4 times, I have to do the parentheses first. So 6 plus 3 is 9. Okay, and now I just keep writing this equals 36 every time. You don't worry about that side of it. I'm trying to solve this side of it to see if I get the same answer as the other side. So 4 times 9 is 36, and that equals 36. So in other words, if I had gotten the wrong answer, so you do not need to write this part, but let's say I got the answer of 5, and I go to solve this problem on my check, I would have 5 plus 3 in the parentheses. So that would give me 8. And then I would have 4 times 8. Well, that's 32. And then I look at my problem, I say, wait, 32 does not equal 36. My problem is wrong, and I have to go back and fix it. So that's why we check. So this one's wrong. And if I'd gotten 5 as my answer, then I need to go back and look and see where I did something wrong. I might have multiplied wrong or divided wrong, or maybe I just did the whole problem wrong, and I need some help from the teacher or from a friend or a parent. Okay, example 3. So this one again is something different. So I have z minus 3, divide the whole thing divided by 2 equals 9. So I can't just add 3 here because there's a divide it by 2 underneath it. So on this one, and this one is special because it has the whole thing on top of that 2, is I need to get rid of the 2 first before I can do anything. So that's divided by 2, so I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides. And that makes these two cancel each other out. And so I have z minus 3, and on the other side I have 9 times 2 is 18. Now I'm going to add 3 on both sides, and that gives me z equals 21. Okay, if I'm going a little bit fast for y'all, you can always pause, get things written down, and then maybe rewind a little bit and listen to it again. That's the joy of having this on video. Okay, now we're going to check this one. So same thing, I'm just going to start with the problem so that y'all can see what I'm doing. Okay, so z is going to be 21, right? Because that was my answer. So 21 minus 3 divided by 2 should equal 9. Okay, well 21 minus 3 is 18. And then 18 divided by 2 is 9. And I want that written down below. So your check should always be all the work is shown here, all the way to the bottom. And then this is just whatever the answer was. Later in algebra, you do not have to write this, but you will have like a problem here and a problem here. And so whatever your answer is, you need to solve this side and this side to see if they both equal each other. Okay, last example. Example 4. So example 4 is going to have a fraction in it. We actually did some like this before, so it should not look anything different. You should have seen this already, except that this one has 2 different steps. But some kids have forgotten, so we're just going to go over it again. Okay, we're going to ignore that fraction for a minute. That sometimes scares kids, but it shouldn't scare you. And we're going to get rid of the minus 6 first, just like we did on the first 2. We're going to take care of that side first. So we're going to add 6 because that's the opposite of minus. And now I have 3/4 a equals 15. Now, how do I get rid of that fraction? So if you remember, we talked about reciprocals. So a reciprocal is like a flip of the number. So the reciprocal of 1/2 would be 2/1. So that's the reciprocal, right? And the thing about reciprocals is when you multiply them by each other, they always equal 1. So these two would cancel out, and that would equal 1. If I had 3/4 times 4/3, so that's the reciprocal, the flip, these 4's cancel each other out. That means they make each other 1's, and 3's would be 1's, and so that equals 1. And that's what we want to find out. We want this A right here to equal 1. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of 3/4. But if I do one thing to one side, I have to do the same thing to the other side. So now these cancel each other out, and I just have A equals, and over here I need to solve this problem. So remember, we could put 15/1, and then we can simplify. 3 and 15 can both be divided by 3. So when I do that, 3 divided by 3 is 1. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And now I have 5 times 4 is 20/1. Well, 20/1 is just 20. So my answer is A equals 20. And then I'm not going to go through the check for this one, but the check is the same way. Just put the 20 in place of the A and solve the problem. Okay, if you're having problems with checks, or if this is the first time you've seen checks, just different years I've done different things, so it just depends on what year it is. If this is the first time we've done checks or not, is you may need to ask me in class about checks if you didn't understand it in this video, because I'm very specific on the way you do your checks, and you do get points taken off if you are not doing your checks correctly when you're doing your work. Okay, that's it for this lesson. We didn't do any on your owns because they were all kind of different, and I don't want the video to last a long time. We could have done an on your own for all four of those, but I think you kind of get the idea of this, and you can probably get your homework done just by listening and actually taking notes along with me during this video. So that's it for this lesson.